All right, hey guys, Dr. Sean here. I got asked a question recently. I said, Doc, we saw that the soap opera actress Susan Lucci recently had some kind of cardiovascular issues, and they noticed she had a 90% blockage, and it was on Dr. Oz. And Dr. Oz was talking about how, why did this happen to her? She's lean, she's little, she's petite, she eats well, she's in a business where you have to kind of take care of yourself to stay in the game. Why her, right? And so we got into the whole check your numbers, check your blood pressure, check your cholesterol, check your salts, check your exercise and your weight and all that stuff. But this doesn't apply to her that often. And so we look at this and say, okay, if it's not her world, why her? Well, then he went to genetics. It's got to be genetics. Has to be genetics. Some people are genetically prone to this. It's not wrong, okay? Some people do have genetic predispositions to things. And you see that a lot in young athletes when they die on a field. We saw it with Reggie Lewis and Hank Gathers. Gosh, who else was in there? We saw it with Bob Harper, right? The guy that recently had the heart attack that was the main trainer on The Biggest Loser. Okay, and you look at that and think, okay, he's the guy, right? He's the trainer. Talking about diet, nutrition, how important it is, and exercise, and all these people he's trying to help, but had a heart issue himself. So we go back to this thing and say, all right, well, genetics then. Is it genetics? Is that what this is all about? Is everybody's problem just a genetic thing? Are we just predetermined or predisposed to this? There's nothing we can do? Is that really the case? So I thought, I'll look into this a little bit for you. I'll have some fun. What are the odds of having a genetic predisposition for heart disease? What are the odds of really having something go on there? If you follow the geneticists, true genetic malformations are things you're going to physically see on the body. I mean, the big deals, the Down syndrome, the trisomy 21, Klinefelters, things of that nature. True genetic defects that occur. Now, lots of people have variants, but a true defect, according to the geneticists, the people that study this for a living, happen in roughly 2 to 4% of the globe's population. So you think about that. The next time you're told, well, Mrs. Smith, your cholesterol's high, it's probably genetics. Okay, my sister, my brother, my uncle, my 9 neighbors, my 12 people down the road, we all had this? But genetics is only 2 to 4% of the population, which means that's way too many people to call it genetics. See, it's easy to fall back on that because, well, when you don't know what it is, it's got to be that. But let's look at this. What are they not asking, right? Dr. Oz made this big deal about make sure you know your numbers. Got to know your numbers. I'm not against Dr. Oz. I like what he does. But make sure you know your numbers. Here's what's missing, okay? So you know your blood pressure's high. You know your cholesterol's elevated. Who cares? Because if you're not looking for why those are elevated and why those are high, you're not going to fix what they cause. We've seen this time and time again. Guys, there's a reason heart disease is still the #1 killer in the country, right? And statistically, it really hasn't changed at all in the last 3 to 4 to 5 years. Matter of fact, the CDC noted last year that any gains we've been making in heart disease have leveled off over the last 3 years. We've made no progress at all. And we look at that and we say, well, that doesn't make sense, right? We got all these great therapies and stents and surgeries and heart replacements and valves. We can do all this cool stuff. And we haven't gained anything? Maybe we're barking up the wrong tree. Maybe we're looking at the wrong thing. We're focusing too much on, okay, blood pressure. I'm not saying it's not tied to it, but we very seldom ask why. Why do I have high blood pressure? Oh, Mrs. Smith, your cholesterol's up. Well, why? Well, it just happens that way. Or your blood pressure, well, if you're like Susan Lucci, you're lean, you're thin, you do all these things, well, it just must be genetics. I don't buy that. I've never bought that because it's not the case. I've helped thousands of patients, thousands, with blood pressure problems. I've helped more than that with cholesterol issues. I've helped tens of thousands that are diabetic. And you look at these things and you say, it can't all be genetics. We have to go back and look for cause. So let's take this a different perspective. What does blood pressure do in the body? What do we use it for? Right? Why do we even have it? Right? We're pumping blood around and they're measuring how hard things are contracting and pushing stuff through the system. What does cholesterol do in the body? Why do we have it? They don't talk about that, hey, it's the major fuel for your brain to think. We got to have it. It's the major component of all of your stress hormones. So when the body's being stressed, guess what? You're going to start dumping cholesterol into the bloodstream like wildfire to try to make more hormones to deal with the stress, deal with the bear. So we look at that and say, okay, so blood pressure, cholesterol. Cholesterol is a solute, what they call it, a dissolved solute in the system. Temperature regulation, right? That's something that we have to watch all the time. And we start thinking about blood pressure, cholesterol, solutes, temperature regulation, pH. We're hearing all the time about acids and bases, alkalines. But all of those are things that the body uses to maintain something called homeostasis. And that is what's getting lost in all this talk, is how is your body trying to stay balanced, trying to stay normal? The medical term for it is homeostasis. Your body is already in that state. I'm in it. If you're watching this video, you're in it. It may not be happily in it, but you're in it. The body's saying, look, man, I'm going to balance the best I can with whatever you're giving me. If this is the tools you're going to give me, this is how I'm going to do it. But I might be throwing, good money down a bad thing. Think of the money pit, right? I might be throwing money away trying to rebuild something that's not worth the time and the effort. But I don't have a choice if I can't find its cause. So we go back and we look at this thing and we look at the idea of heart disease and how it's rampant in this country. It's the leading killer in this country. They're telling us, well, it could be genetics and just, you just gotta watch your numbers. Why not find your cause? And so let's take 2 seconds and look at that. What is the cause? Right? The cause of all disease is stress. That's how it works, guys. There's no other way to put it. Stress is the cause of all disease, but you've got to break that stress down. You can't just say generically, well, it's just stress. It's anything that stresses the body. Now, I tease in my practice that men were the cause of all stress, right? Men, M-E-N. There are mechanical things that affect the body. There are physical things, structural things, accidents, traumas, falls that stress that body. Sometimes lifting weights, things like that. That's a good stress, but it's still a stress. Sometimes slipping down a flight of stairs, that's not such a good stress. It taxes the body. It challenges it. And the body says, look, man, I'm going to try to do the best I can to push back and resist. Then we look at the E in men. Emotions, energies, right? It's what we call functional disorders. That's all on that E side. I make a triangle for my practice. Mechanical, emotional, nutritional. The E side, that emotional side, that's where you see functional disorders. Now here's a real kicker. According to modern medicine today, functional disorders are 80% of everything that goes wrong with us. 80% are on that energetic, emotional side. Well, what's over there then? Right? Genetics, that hangs out on the functional side. Right? Environmental influences on those genetics, on that DNA. What we call epigenetics. It's on that functional side. Vibrational things, sound waves, electromagnetic waves, fluorescent lights, all these things that affect the body and vibrations are on that side. Then you got the N, M-E-N, the men, right? The N side, chemical things, nutritional things, what we eat, what we drink, what's in our environment. I was looking at a study the other day that was looking at Roundup and the main ingredient, the glyphosate that's in Roundup. And they were talking about that in the most recent study that was done on children. They took children, tested their urine. 90% of them had little particles of that chemical in their urine. 90% of the kids tested. And you look at that and say, wow, that's not going out of the environment then. Right? We're getting that. I remember seeing a study years ago on eggs. It was some egg on a bird that lived on a cliff up in Maine. And they found these cliff birds in the egg shell had over 200 different chemicals from the environment in their eggshell that were not supposed to be there. Right? So we look at our world that we live in and we say, gosh, doc, we're talking about genetics and what it does and heart disease and how we all get it, how can we avoid it, and what can we do? We go back to our homeostasis. We go back to our idea of balancing the body. Guys, you got to find the cause and you have to nourish that body. You got to balance it. Say, all right, if I've got a bunch of mechanical stresses, can I do something to alleviate some of those? If I've got all these emotional things going on, maybe it's work and bills and kids and friends and family. Maybe it's energetic type things. Maybe I live under a bunch of power lines, right? Or I'm too close to a factory. I'm breathing in stuff all the time. I've got chemicals, or I'm eating all these man-made foods and I'm not eating real food. Maybe all those things, those factors, if I can limit some of them, then that decreases the inflammation in my body. It helps my body maintain a regular blood pressure. It allows the body to lower its stress-producing stress hormones, which lowers cholesterol, which then takes the idea of heart disease off the table. One last thing for you guys. It takes roughly 30 years to develop heart disease, right? 20 to 30 years. And you look at people like Bob Harper and Susan Lucci that are trying to take care of themselves, and we look at that and say, well, they're eating right? And they're exercising. So how do they ever get this? Remember that functional side? M and N, they're doing great. Mechanical, nutritional, but they're not doing well on the other side. There's something going on there. And that's what has to be found. That's what we do. That's what we spend our time doing. Right? So if you're someone that's battling heart disease, if you're someone that's battling strokes, if you're someone that's been battling any kind of chronic autoimmune degenerative type condition, there's hope for you. Right? Don't give up. You just have to know what to do. And you got to know, where do you start your fight? And every little step you take forward, every little thing you do will help the body to regain itself. That's what it's all about. Living a quality-filled life as long as you possibly can. But you got to be educated. You got to have someone hold your hand and help you a little bit along the path, right? And make that journey worthwhile. I'm Dr. Sean, the Robin Hood of Healthcare.